Hello, Mrs. Belo here. In this video, I'm going to be explaining the periodic table trends lab. In this lab, you're going to investigate and explain the three periodic table trends that we have talked about in class: atomic radius, ionization energy, and electronegativity. We're going to be using data that I provide to you to graph these three trends and correlate the trend itself on the periodic table with the graph that you are going to make. You're going to use this Excel file, again, that has the data to make the three graphs. You have to make sure each graph has proper titles and labels. And then after completing the three graphs, you have just a few analysis questions that go along with each one. These are the three graphs you're going to make. And it also, each graph here indicates what is going to be on each axis, so the X and Y axis. So let's follow the steps here to make these graphs. We're going to open, so step one, we're going to open the Excel file, which is right here. You're going to double click on that. Click Enable Editing if you need to do that. And then make sure that you save it to a safe place where you can access it again later. Next, I'm going to go ahead and split screen so I can see what I'm working on and the steps in here and work on the Excel document at the same time. In the Excel document, you can see I've provided the atomic number for each of these elements from hydrogen through calcium. And then I have the atomic radius, ionization energy, and electronegativity values for each of those elements. Step two, the first graph we're going to create is graph one, atomic number versus atomic radius. In step three, we're going to highlight all data points in both columns, but we're not going to highlight the titles. You can only plot numerical values. So for atomic number and atomic radius, those are the two things we want to plot on our graph. We're not going to highlight the titles, we're just going to highlight the numbers in each of those columns like this. Step four, click on Insert at the top. Click on the drop down for Chart, which is right here, it's this button. We're going to pick the scatter chart, so these are the scatter charts. We're going to pick the one called Scatter with Straight Lines and Markers. So if you hover over them, it will tell you what the name of the graph is. We're going to pick this one here, Scatter with Straight Lines and Markers. We're going to click on that to create our first graph. So you can see here in purple, these are the numbers on the graph on the x-axis right here, and highlighted in blue here for the atomic radius, that is plotted on the y-axis here. So we will have to label those. I'm going to go ahead and just move my graph here and scroll down so I can see it better. I'm just going to click out of that. Now we have to make a few changes to the graph, our title and our axis labels. So to do this, we're going to click on the green plus sign. So it should pop up right here, but if you don't see it, just move your graph around and then you should be able to see this green plus sign. It says chart elements. We're going to click on that. Okay, and then we get some check boxes here. So click on the check box, axis titles. So we need to select that. And we're going to accurately label each axis on our graph with proper titles and units if applicable. So as I said, for each of these graphs, it will be the same. On the x-axis, we're going to plot the atomic number. So remember the atomic number, that's the number of protons, that's a defining characteristic for each element. If you look on the periodic table, this will tell you what element is what. However, for each of your graphs, the y-axis will be different. For this graph, since we plotted atomic radius, on that axis. So now that we have our labels, next I'm going to go back to the little plus sign here, and I'm also going to make sure it should already be checked, but we do have the chart title. So that should be there by default, but if it's not, make sure you have it clicked. So we're going to change our title to be Graph 1, as it says in the directions, and then it's atomic radius versus atomic number. So all of your graphs will be very similar except for this part right here, and therefore the y-axis. And there we almost have it. So we're here on step 9. So we change the title. And then we're going to add tick marks to the graph. To do this, we're going to double click on the x-axis numbers. So if you double click on the numbers here, you should get this to show up. Okay, so you just have to double click on, like I'm going to double click here, and you should get this to show up. And a menu will appear called Format Access. And we're going to click on tick marks. So we have to go down here. So I'm going to click the drop down for that. And we are going to select minor. And we're going to select cross for that. Okay? So minor and cross. This will just help a little bit when we do the analysis part. And that is how you make your first graph. So you're going to do the same thing for the remaining graphs, the exact same steps. However, when you're going to select your data, I'm going to show you how to do that. So for graph 2, it's going to be the atomic number versus the ionization energy. So you're going to highlight this data here for atomic number, but then you also need to highlight this data here for ionization energy. So to do that, you're going to highlight atomic number, and then if you click and hold on the control key, so it's the lower left key on your keyboard, if you click and hold the control button, you will also be able, and then with your mouse, you're going to click and hold to highlight those numbers there. Okay, so again, you're going to click and hold to highlight the numbers here. And on my keyboard, I'm going to click and hold the control button. And using my keypad, my mouse, I'm going to click and hold to highlight these numbers here. And then I'm going to do the same steps, insert, and we're going to select the graph here. And then we're going to click on that. And then our graph, oops, here, let me click on that again. There we go. And then this will be my second graph. I'm going to just move that over here. And again, I'm going to have to do the same steps to have the proper title and labels for each axis. And you're going to do that and have 3 graphs in total. And once you have those graphs, you can just click on them and copy and paste. If anything is kind of weird with that, you could always just use the snipping tool to snip from here and paste into your document as well. And then you're going to answer the analysis questions, which might involve doing some further labeling. You can just simply draw on this in your OneNote for the labeling.